Ladies and gentlemen, this is an article that came out on Axios May 9th, 2019. Now, I've been talking about the low birth rate for quite some time, but actually, this is a very global phenomena that's going on. And it's going on at such an alarming pace that it's actually scaring people. I was just looking at an article this morning, y'all, and it was talking about Japan. Now, in the past, I have told you they're giving out free houses to couples that have children. Well, they're now taking it a step further. They're offering free daycare for parents that have children. So they're offering all kinds of perks where parents can continue to work but don't have to worry about paying for daycare anymore or any kind of child care that is required. Japan is now offering all of that for free. And that's a huge expense because look at how expensive childcare is here in the US. It's outrageous, you know? And so many people can't afford it. If you got a family member that can watch over your children, that probably is the best way to go anyway, because at least you got somebody that is familiar with the child and loves the child, opposed to somebody that you're paying all kinds of money to and they really don't care about your child at all. So it's going to show you a chart that's interactive, and it's showing you the birth rate in every country, past, present, and future, babies per woman, 1950 to 2100. 1950 is because that's when the decline started happening. You had your baby boomers that were born after World War II, and that went on into the late 50s. That's when it started dropping off here in the US. Okay, that's when it was first noted that there was a decline in the birth rate. Now, you might ask, why didn't they talk about it? Because it wasn't so noticeable. Today, it is. It's very noticeable today. I even notice it when I go out. When I go out, I see a lot more elderly people than I do younger people. And when I'm out and I see those younger people, I don't see them all with babies. I don't even see them all with toddlers. Not like I used to. Before, we were almost bumping into each other with strollers out here. But it's not like that anymore. And I notice that all around me, even when I go shopping in the supermarket. Years ago, I would see all kinds of parents there with their children, and you would always run into people with children in the supermarket. I don't run into that anymore. Now, I will see a few, but it's nowhere near as many as I saw 10 and 20 years ago. Nowhere near. I honestly can see the change myself. Even when I cross over to other towns where the demographic will change. Some towns will have a higher Black and Latino population, some will have a higher white population. Even when I cross into those towns, it's the same thing. It's not any different. I still see fewer adults walking around with babies and toddlers. So I definitely notice it. And there were some recent articles that came out probably about a year ago where now, even in the state that I'm in, there are fewer white children statewide in the schools. Now, some of you tried to say, oh, white flight. No, it's really not that. It's not that. We still have a lot of white population where I am, but they're elderly people. That's what the majority of them are, elders. They are not young people. And that's what, and that's what I see when I go out. When I go out, I see more older people out and about than I do younger. The older people are definitely outnumbering the younger. And I can't be the only one that noticed this. But let's get into this. And I just want to show you the chart. Now, here's Africa. Africa's not really being impacted like many of the other nations. So you see Asia on the chart. You see how it completely flatlined there. Europe, same way, which is actually worse than Asia. They flatlined a long time ago. Shoot, it was back in the 80s I was hearing about Europe and how they weren't reproducing even back in the 80s. So it's far worse now. This is why they're trying to give all kinds of perks to people that have babies. They're trying to pay women to have babies over there and offering, you know, all types of money from the government. And it's still not working because that's not what their problem is. They're not looking at what the real problem is. And they keep trying to act like people can just naturally have all these babies, and they simply can't. So if you're not going to deal with the real reason, then how do you resolve it? You can't. All right, North America, you can see how it really flatlined here in North America. So, I mean, it's Oceania, which is not quite as bad as America, but they're definitely declined. South America. So it's everywhere. It's everywhere. You know, it was during the time when the caravan was going through Mexico. They were talking about all of the countries in South America, including Mexico, that are going through low birth rate. All of those places those people are from that are crossing the border, Honduras and Guatemala, all of them, they are having low birth rate. Fewer babies in South America. And not to mention, and this is just a sidebar, I really believe they deliberately put that Zika virus down there. I really do. I think that was deliberate, you know, because after that point in time, those women were running in droves to get abortions because they did not want to have those Zika babies. And it slowed everything up in South America. But I don't believe that was no accident. Those mosquitoes down there, they were no accident at all. Okay, so for the last half century, at one point in time after World War II, the population was exploding and then it started reversing. All right. So the age old challenge is changing. The population of most countries is shrinking, for many of them at an alarming pace, and at the same time aging. And that is a huge problem because now you have these folks that are at retirement age, and there's not enough young people to replace the people retiring. In fact, I did an article last year where they're asking a lot of these elders to stay on these jobs beyond their retirement age because they don't have anybody to really replace them. And that's been an ongoing problem even here in America. So much of the world teeters on the cusp of a childless, elderly future. That is, you got to think about everything that's going to impact. It's going to impact Social Security. It's going to impact your labor force. It's going to impact the medical industry, schools. It's going to be a lot of places, and we're seeing this in rural America where they're shutting down maternity wards because hardly no one is going in there to have babies. Some hospitals are shutting down in areas because it's not enough people going to the hospital. And you've seen the retailers like Toys R Us. They had to shut their doors because people are not having babies. And it was probably about 2017, I did a story on the diaper and formula industries, and they were complaining that they weren't hardly making any money anymore in the baby industry. Everybody, don't realize how much this population decline is really impacting. It's impacting a lot. So, right now, I'm just going to go down a bit. Africa is okay. They still have a higher youth population than elderly. And let me just go back here. People are going to have to work longer, experts say. So you may have the expectation of retiring by 65, but you may not be able to do it. Okay, companies are having a hard time letting their elderly employers go now. And the U.S. requires major reforms in its programs for the elderly, says Richard Senkata, director of the Global Political Demography Program at the Stimson Center, and formerly lead demographer at the U.S. Intelligence Committee. But the government seems to be nowhere near making the Social Security reforms that are needed. And they probably won't until it's really too late. Largely because of Africa, the global population is forecast to continue rising through the century past 11 billion. But according to the United Nations, there is a 23% chance the world population will stabilize or fall by then, in a phenomena that some demographers call peak human. Well, what we're seeing, y'all, is a natural process. You got to really look at this thing realistically. There have been people on this planet, and animals and subhumans, that have come and gone. And that's what's happening now. Survival of the fittest. There are people, their time is up on this planet. They're going to fade away, and that's it. They won't be here anymore. And the ones that are stronger will be here. And that's really what it boils down to. And if you look at who's fading out, it's the ones that are the most recessive. Those are the ones that are fading out. There's probably no need for them to be on the planet anymore because their genetics do not support the changes that the planet is going through. Number one, the planet is heating up. Okay, and it's going to be tougher and tougher for people that don't have enough melanin in their skin to survive. You can't control the planet from going through its natural process. You might control things socially, but as far as the planet itself, you don't control that. And the planet is heating up. There's no doubt about it. It gets hotter every year. So, how are you going to survive on the planet when you're not really not physically equipped to do it. So it's going to wipe out all of those people and continue on. The earth is going to be here, y'all. The earth the earth is not dying. But certain species on the planet, they got to go. And I'm sure this has been a process that's been going on for thousands of years. We don't see any Neanderthals stumbling around here anymore. They're gone. Their offspring is here, but they're part human and hybrids and all that stuff, but they're not the actual Neanderthal. They're gone. There's no need for them to be here. What are they going to do here? Okay, seriously, what are they going to do on the earth? Your time comes, it goes. By 2100, the population of the world's poorest countries will more than triple from 954 million in 2015 to 3.2 billion. Minus immigration, the population of the US, Japan, and all of Europe are shrinking. By 2050, 48 countries or areas will have fewer people. Several will see a 15% decline, including Japan, the Balkans, and the Baltics, and some much more. In 2016, the fertility rate in the United States was the lowest it has ever been, according to the Center for Disease Control. It was 1,765 births per 1,000 women of childbearing age, below the replacement rate of 2,100. So it's about, if you round that off, 1.8. And the replacement rate is 2.1. So America is below the replacement rate. At the same time, there will be more old people. Forecasts include a spike in the number of people 80 and over. I see that already. You know, you can go to certain places and it's a big elderly population, and the younger people are fewer. And that's not a good sign, because once those elderly people die out, the population in those generations after that are much smaller. So, and I really believe we're seeing it now, but because of political power and all types of social issues going on, you got people that are going to hang on to the power as long as they can, or what they perceive as power. If you don't have another generation to pass it to, how powerful are you? You're not. Plain and simple, you're not. Okay, global life expectancy will rise from about 70 in 2015 to 83 in 2100, according to the UN figures. Except Africa, by 2050, about a quarter of the world's population will be 60 or older. So again, after Africa is the only place that still has more bigger youth population than elderly. And that's really the way it should be globally. Okay, about 900 million now. Their numbers will rise to about 3.2 billion in 2100. By 2080, those 65 or older will be 29.1% of the global population, and 12.7% will be 80 and older, Eurostat said. The most worrying figure: the world will not have sufficient working age people. And that is what scares them the most. And that's going to be global. See, right now you got immigrants coming or migrants coming into your country. But as everything fades, that, those things are not going to help an entire country all over the globe. People shifting around, especially when there's fewer people on the earth, that's not going to help anything. Okay, so currently North America has just under 4 workers per retired person. 7 European countries have 3, and Japan has just a bit more than 2. Wow. By 2050, 7 Asian countries, 24 European, and 4 Latin Americans will fall below 2 workers per retired person, the UN says. This means a rising fiscal burden and slower economic growth that if the population was not aging, says Richard Jackson of the Global Aging Institute. So, y'all, they are worried. If you have less of a workforce, then you got a smaller economy that you got to work with now. And it's going to be tough for many of these countries because they have worked with these inflated economies forever now. They're going to have to make a lot of adjustments to the amount of people that are here. They can't overinflate everything like you see them doing now. So, times are changing, y'all, and it's changing rapidly. It may not feel like it's moving rapidly, but it really is. But please tell me what you think, ladies and gentlemen. Please leave your comment and subscribe. Don't forget to hit on the notification bell. And I will see you on the next video. Peace, family.